Hey guys, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. I'm out in our side yard garden today because I want to share with you this plant that I think is just an amazing plant for gardeners to put in their garden. There's a lot of great reasons to plant Viburnum nudum, which is also known as Possumhaw Viburnum, raisin tree, Witherod Viburnum. It's got several different names for it, but it has some amazing qualities that work really well in a garden. So let's talk about that, and you can learn a little bit more today about Viburnum nudum and why it's good for your garden. This viburnum is a native viburnum to much of the eastern United States. Here in Tennessee, it does fantastic. It is rated for zones 5 through 9. We're in a zone 7, so it's smack dab in the middle of that rating, which is perfect for this viburnum. It's got really beautiful leaves, which is one of my favorite features of this. If you check these out, these leaves have a really nice smooth gloss on the exterior of them. The underside looks a little bit more muted, but they are really pretty leaves like this. And in the fall, they get a brilliant red to purple coloration on them. And it just has some really, really great fall color. One of the best features of this plant is the berry production. It creates these clusters of pinkish to bluish berries. When they're pink, they're not quite ripe. When they're blue, they're ripe. Birds love these things. They're also edible from people, which is why we get the name the raisin tree, because a lot of people think they taste like raisins. I'm not sure that extracting the seed and eating the berry is really worth all the trouble for that. However, I do plan to do that with the berries so I can grow a whole lot more of these from seed. We'll talk more about that in a minute. This particular plant we brought over from our other property before we moved, and you can see here it's pretty leggy, and so I've got it propped up with a stake in the middle. Normally it would not grow like that. I put that stake up there just to kind of give it a more upright position to it. But what you normally would see are branches like these on the side. This is all new growth this year. You can see there it put on a good 2.5 to 3 foot of growth on those little side shoots. It can grow up to around 12 feet tall, so you probably want to make sure you have a little bit of space for it. It loves full sun locations. This one here, you see it's in the shade now, but in the afternoon through the evening, it pretty much gets full sun. And so one of my purposes for it is to use it as a little bit of a sun block for this garden bed here. As you can see, I've got some heucheras that I've planted that have gotten a little sun scorched, just because they've got too much sunlight in the afternoons. So that's one of my purposes for it, but it would make a very good hedgerow. But I actually have an even bigger plan for my viburnums. So what you see right here is privet. This is a very, very invasive plant here in Tennessee, and it is spread around all the countryside. Pretty much everywhere you go, you can find some privet somewhere. And we've got huge amounts of it here on the property. I've been going through and cutting back what I can as I can. And one of my thoughts is to replace all this privet that I've got with native viburnums. I would really love to do that. Viburnums just produce a lot of really beneficial things for the wildlife. It's got the berries. A lot of different larval stages of pollinators use viburnums too as a larval food source. So you can do a lot of really good things by planting out these viburnums and replace some of these invasives. So if you replace your privet, you could also replace things like the amur honeysuckle. You could also replace burning bush, and maybe even on the taller side, some of the Bradford pear trees, because these get really great fall color and have spring blooms. The blooms on this viburnum show up in these clusters of flowers. They're tiny, tiny little flowers all in this large cluster, very much like a hydrangea or very similar to other viburnums that you may have seen on this channel before. The two most popular varieties of this are Winter Thur and Brandywine. This one is a Brandywine. Winter Thur is not propagated. This one actually is. So I can't go through and make cuttings of this and reproduce it to put out in my woods right now. What I am going to do is I'm going to use the berries to propagate it. So what you can do is do a series of warm stratification and then cold stratification. Warm stratification, basically you take the seeds out of the little berries and you put them into a little baggie with just a tiny bit of water into a neutral medium, something like perlite, vermiculite, peat, any of those kind of things can work to do that. Then about 2 months later, you put it in the refrigerator for it to overwinter, and then in early spring, probably 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date, you want to go ahead and sow these inside in pots so that you can get them started and germinated before before winter's over and you can plant them outdoors. So that's what my plan is. Now, once you have grown something from seed, it is no longer that original patented plant. So you are free to propagate that from vegetative things like cuttings or division. So that's what my plan is. I'm going to get basically back to the original species variety or something similar to it from this plant, and then I'll start propagating off of those. I may get the winter third variety because what helps is having two different varieties in the same area so that they can cross-pollinate between the flowers. When you do that, they get better pollination. They're different varieties, so you'll have better berry production. So I've been really impressed with its growth this year. This is just such nice, healthy foliage all along the bottom. It started regrowing from the end of the stem and then down at the base where the root crown is. I've actually got a couple other sprouts that are starting to emerge from here. And this plant is just going to fill out really great. I wish I'd planted it a little bit sooner, but I wasn't sure exactly where to plant it before. But it is doing fantastic in its current location, and I'm really anticipating a fantastic look from it when I start replacing the privet from the seedlings that hopefully I can get growing by next year. So the only problem I ever see with this is a little bit of this fungal leaf spotting. And this is just a fungus that gets on a lot of different plants. You'll see it on a lot of your autoleucon cherry laurels, or you'll see it on the hydrangeas you might have. It's very common. You can spray with a fungicide during the spring when it's really wet to help prevent that from happening. You're probably never going to completely eliminate it. In the fall, when the leaves drop, you take the leaves out of the bed, you rake them up and get them out of there and dispose of them somewhere. But the reason you do that is because the rain will fall, land in the soil, and then it'll bounce little particles, and sometimes the fungus will come up from that. So that's why you'd want to rake away some of those leaves if you have infected plants in those areas. It does have a little bit of a suckering tendency, as you can tell right down here at the base of the plant. But that is also great if you're ever wanting to divide it, because it will tolerate division on occasion. A lot of varieties of viburnums actually are great for dividing. Arrowwood is one of my favorites for dividing plants on because it likes to spread with the root system down under the soil and then shoot up these shoots, very similar to what this one is doing here. So Viburnum nudum is really an excellent plant to plant in a garden. You can see there's a lot of great benefits to it, from native animals and wildlife enjoying it, the pollinators and the birds, and plus it has tremendous ornamental value when you talk about the beautiful glossy leaves, the great fall color, and some of these really amazing berries. So there's a lot of great reasons to do this. I think it's an amazing substitute for a lot of the invasive plants that are out there that we see every day. So I definitely want to encourage you guys, if you see these around, go ahead and get one, plant it in your yard and garden if you've got the space for it, and contribute to your local pollinators and your native wildlife out there, because it's just a great addition to your garden. But I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time here on Growing the Home Garden.